you to our event. We heartily welcome you to our event this evening. We are so pleased and delighted that you could join us for this panel discussion, the Oasis of Leadership. Zoom Master, kindly give me a heads up if we are good to go. Is the connectivity okay from your end?
Yes, the connectivity is fine. We're good to go. We're connected, and Mundia is on a call as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Good evening, guests. We heartily welcome you to our panel discussion this evening. We will be talking about leadership. Africa has a lot of resources. Africa is blessed in so many things. One of the things that lacks in Africa is a quality of leadership. Africa has suffered a drought of leadership for the longest time. We can clearly see from the dysfunctional economies, the poor political landscapes that we have. And on top of that, we can see it from organizations performing so badly due to poor leadership, and individuals who cannot lead themselves. However, in the midst of all this drought, there is hope. There is an oasis of leadership in the name of Toastmasters. We have seen how Toastmasters has shaped the leaders of today and how they have gone to transform organizations in which they belong to and how they have applied their skills. I am so excited to be on this panel with the leaders of our time. These are leaders who aren't only famous, but are very influential. With me this evening, I have Toastmaster Kennedy. Toastmaster Kennedy has 17 years senior management experience in private and public sector. He is a professional in finance and business executive with a master's degree. He is currently the managing director for Lusaka Multi-Facility Economic Zone, where he has been working since 2020. He is also our past area director and has been a member of Toastmasters since 2017. Good to have you with us, Toastmaster Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and you've been so generous in that introduction. Good evening, Toastmasters and guests.
Good evening. On the panel this evening, we also have Toastmaster Billy Elswape. He is a certified and approved Agile project manager, consultant, and educator. He is passionate about project management and leadership training with over 18 years of ICT. He has leadership experience in mining and banking sector. Billy is a TED speaker and a public speaker. When he first joined Toastmasters, he was appointed to be president just 3 months into his role. He hasn't only served as president in his home club, Eagles, he then went ahead and became the area director in his second year of being a Toastmaster. Toastmaster Billy is now our current outgoing division director for Division M. He has been in Toastmasters for 3 years. Good evening, Toastmaster Billy.
Good evening, Olivia, and thank you very much for that beautiful introduction.
We also are blessed to have Mundia this evening. Mundia is our former area director. By then we had Division Z, Mundia led us as area director in 2016. Mundia has been in Toastmasters since 2016. Mundia is currently the director. And Mundia, are you on call? Is Mundia on call with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. I am on the road, but I have stopped to just connect. I appreciate so much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The last on our panel is Toastmaster James Kapesa. I had the privilege to have a chat with James. James is an accountant by training from CBU. He is a fellow Zika and associate global member management accountant. He is also an investment banking and trade finance expert with 20 years of experience. He is an entrepreneur and an executive manager. He is currently heading the National Health Insurance Management Authority, NIMA, as a Director General. He runs a business and he is a published author of 2 books and several yet to come. He has been in Toastmasters since 2016 and has served as club president for for Zambezi Club. And also, James is a public speaker, and he had the privilege of winning when we still had Division Z, which was Zambia and Zimbabwe. James was crowned as champion of public speaking in 2017. James will join us shortly on the call. He is currently on the road. However, we will proceed with our panelists this evening. Fellow Toastmasters, invited guests, and those of you that are joining us for the very first time, we are going to have an exciting moment this evening. We are ready and prepared. The good part about this evening is the panelists do not know the questions that I have prepared for them. However, I'll try to be as lenient as possible to just accommodate everyone. To begin with, it's a simple question. Why did you join Toastmasters? And why are you still in Toastmasters? Mundia.
Well, thank you very much. I joined Toastmasters for one specific reason. And the reason I joined Toastmasters is to learn how to stand in front of people and speak. I used to have a lot of fright in being able to communicate effectively in meetings. And I thought that I needed to hone my skills. Why am I still in Toastmasters? Even having gained the exposure and the teachings in Toastmasters, I still think I can continue to learn a lot. I actually credit my latest achievement in getting a job that I have now to Toastmasters. And I will give an example. On a Friday, about 2 months ago, I was asked to go for an interview. And the first thing I was told was that you need to do a 20-minute presentation before a board. And I had to think around the skills that I learned in Toastmasters. Part of the skills were, and I caught them. They told me that in a presentation, you have to make sure that you don't make it wordy, make it pictorial, and ensure that you are able to communicate your message effectively to your audience. I credit Toastmasters to the result of perhaps the impact I made when I did the presentation. After the presentation, at times, when you present, you're even able to tell that I think I conveyed my message effectively to my audience. And thank you for Toastmasters. Now, going forward clearly, I still need to hone my skills and being able to speak. Today, I was before a parliamentary committee, and parliamentarians are good debaters. Again, I credit Toastmasters to being able to become during the period I was being asked questions and responding to the specific questions I was required to respond to. So I'm in Toastmasters to continue to improve myself. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Mundir. The next question is, how has Toastmasters shaped your leadership journey? How has it helped you contribute to being where you are today, leading organization and a lot of people? Toastmaster Kennedy, kindly take us through how Toastmaster has shaped you to be the leader you are today.
That's an interesting
not more
question.
than...
Okay, thank you so much. Firstly, you've got to understand one thing about leadership. And the thing is, leadership has to be deliberate. Remember, you are first a leader before you are CEO, and not vice versa. You're not, being CEO doesn't make you a leader. So describing my journey in leadership, I would look back so many years when I was in school, where you have this experience of leadership, but unguided. So you grow being a leader many times throughout your life. But eventually, when I stumbled upon Toastmasters, and by the way, unlike Toastmaster Mundia, my journey in Toastmasters was quite accidental. Now that I did, I had to look at the many things that were flaws in my leadership styles previously. If you are to ask me what Toastmasters done today to me in my leadership, it has tried to refine my way of doing things and thinking. So how do I credit Toastmasters today? The art of being patient. What makes you a leader is your ability to listen, even to the unspoken words, ability to listen to silence. Toastmaster comes in handy there for you to deliver. So yes, indeed, in the moment of 2 or so minutes, the journey of my leadership, I credit its refinement to Toastmasters. And if you were to ask me today, I still want to apply my trade in there in the club, in Toastmasters International, knowing that the skills that I've acquired along the way would actually fade off if I don't practice them all the time. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. Toastmasters has given you the ability to listen. I do hope that because you are a CEO, you do listen to your junior management team, even though you sometimes have conflicts with those people. The next question that I would like to ask, I'm very curious to hear feedback, is what are some of the transferable skills that you have picked from Toastmasters into your professional life? And how has that impacted you on your personal life and your leadership life? Toastmaster Billy.
Thank you so much, Olivia. That's a very interesting question. There's so many transferable skills that I've picked in Toastmasters. And just so you know, I was also an accidental Toastmaster. I just stumbled upon it and I wasn't so sure what I was going to learn from my Toastmasters journey. But so far, it's been impeccable. This journey has been exciting. And the tools that I've acquired in Toastmasters have been able to transfer them almost immediately in my private life, in my work life, and in my professional life as well. I'll just give you 3 due to time. Number 1 is I've harnessed the skill of listening. Leadership is about listening. Just like any business, you want to listen to your customers before you build any product for them. And so listening to understand and not to respond is the first cornerstone that I've picked in Toastmasters. And this has really helped me to build teams to become more efficient in the way that they operate, because I listen more to understand what their needs are, what the blockers are in their work streams. And therefore, I'm able to help them very effectively. The second one is better speaking. I have become a better speaker. Many people can attest to that. Just a few years ago, I used to have a lot of ums and ums. There was no structure. I had the confidence, but there was no structure to the way that I used to do things. And therefore, with Toastmasters, it has equipped me with the knowledge of speaking eloquently and powerfully using the tools that are there in Toastmasters. And I'm therefore able to share my goals, my vision with my teams, and they're able to follow through. And finally, the presentation, just like Mundia, I have become a better presenter. And because of that, I've been able to be invited at many forums across the globe to do my presentation. I owe it to Toastmasters for my TED Talk opportunity that I had. It's all because Toastmasters gave me those skills. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Billy. We have learned from you that you're now a good listener and a good presenter. We all know that COVID hit us so badly the past few years. And when that struck, it stopped a lot of businesses. Most of us were working from home. Most of us learned a tactic of now living at home with your family. There was no chance of whatsoever to run away from your family. This is when you decided and when you made a decision to know whether you made the right choice to be in that family or it was just an accident, like fellow Toastmaster Billy and Kennedy mentioned. The next question that I would like to know is, COVID has changed the way we live, the way we do businesses, the way we relate with others. What are some of the lessons learned and how has that shaped you as a leader? What are the lessons you learned during the pandemic and how has it shaped you as a leader? Toastmaster Kennedy. Toastmaster Kennedy, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Am I audible now?
Yes, I can get you.
Thank you so much. That's an awesome question, Olivia, that you've asked. Let me mention a few things relating to COVID that have come as way of lessons to me. Firstly, I've come to realize that disruption in a global economy is constant. And this is my reasoning. Not so long ago, we were so constricted in thinking about COVID, but now we are speaking about war. Before you know it, another event or calamity might occur that alters the way you do things. Secondly, going back to COVID, I've also come to learn that again, the world can be unified in a smaller way through a screen without necessarily people having to do a lot of traveling. So if you are running a business, it's your chance to start thinking about adaptation. Those who adapt early have it easy. Rigidity in business has collapsed many enterprises world over, and COVID has come to remind us, those of us leading institutions, that as long as you're not ready to adapt or you're not ready to listen to the undertones of the economy, the undertones of global events, you shall be left out. But I want to go to the primary principle I mentioned, that disruption is constant. So as a leader, you have to bring in your maximum agility if you are to lead in a successful way. And I think going forward, that is the lesson all of us in leadership are trying to carry. Now we've been reminded we can't drop our ball. We have to hold it high and remember that, in fact, before any event comes to alter what we do things, we must have our guard high and ready ourselves and the institutions we are leading, ensure that whatever comes our way, we are that near ready to reacting. So we've got to have an environment created within our sphere where we are sitting on the edge, especially that we have to continue anticipating a disruption. So I think for me is your ability to adapt as a leader. That's what has come in as a bigger lesson through the COVID pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Billy, would you like to tell us some of the lessons that you learned during the COVID pandemic?
Thank you very much. Kennedy has mentioned all of them. This is a point where you say, as above. But honestly, like Kennedy said, we are living in a versatile world that is always changing on a dime. And I believe that a leader is one that is supposed to be decisive. That's the first thing. visionary, and the most important thing, highly adaptable, because the external environment is always changing. So whether at organizational level, if you're not able to adapt, you actually risk yourself to die as a person, as an organization as well. One thing that I've noticed during COVID and after COVID is that as leaders, there has been need for high level harnessing of high level IQ, emotional intelligence, and also empathy. There's been a need, a shift in the sets of skills that leaders should harness for them to actually survive during these times, because you're now leading a group of people who are going through a lot of traumatic things at the places where they're coming from. And so it calls for you as a leader to actually go an extra mile to understand if people are not hitting burnout and what they're going through as individuals. So I would like to focus more on people. This pandemic has really changed the way I look at leadership, and I've realized that leadership is not a switch on, switch off button. You don't go to sleep and forget about leadership. You might just receive a call at 02 from your team member because they're going through something. So for me, that's the highlight, Olivia, is that we have harnessed more of soft skills that we are applying in our work of our places of work. Thank you.
Very well that you mentioned about empathy. It's more like you're reading my next question. Because of COVID, I've realized that we have developed skills in empathy and compassion. So my next question is, I have realized during COVID that most of us have learned how to practice empathy and compassion. How can you relate to this as a leader? Toastmaster Mundia. Toastmaster Mundia, are you on the call? Is Mundia on the call? Kindly help me because I can't check the participants.
I don't seem to see him. I think he may have dropped off.
Okay. I guess, Billy, you summarized most of that. However, I just wanted to hear Mundia's perspective on how he has managed during COVID. We will go and move on to the next question. I have 1,000 ways of die, 1,000 ways to die this evening. So, gentlemen, just embrace yourselves. I'll keep asking you questions, and I believe that our audience are having a good time. For the audience, in an event that you would like to ask a question, kindly text in the chat box, or if it's on Facebook, in the comment section. We will give you about 30 minutes where we can answer all your questions and see those of you that need help. We will also give you a privilege to ask your questions, and so that we could answer all of you. Fellow Toastmasters and invited guests, we move on to another interesting segment of questions. This one is, when you say you began to see yourself as a leader, when would you say you began to see yourself as a leader? In Toastmasters, we believe this is where leaders are made. Other people believe leaders are born, but we say leaders are made. So when did you begin seeing yourself as a leader? Toastmaster Kennedy.
Thank you, Olivia. I think in my preamble, I mentioned that sometimes leadership comes as like a hunger pain, where it's a desire, it's a drive in you that you sometimes might not understand what it is all about. But eventually, structure is added to it. You start to see what it was that you were feeling all along. When did I see myself as a leader? Let me go back to the time I joined Toastmasters. The time I joined Toastmasters, I was president for SEMA Zambia, and we were looking for some excitement for SEMA members. So we were invited by Madison, thanks to Toastmaster Mundia, who's dropped off the call. And when I saw what was happening at Toastmasters at Madison Club, I thought, why not start this thing as well? So we came back as SEMA, as a professional team, and we chartered that club. For some reason, I was thought to be the first president for SEMA Toastmasters, parallel to my role as president for SEMA Zambia. Now, changes started to show. Remember, I'd already been called a leader at a professional institute. But then, having assumed leadership at Toastmasters, suddenly things changed. I felt there was a difference in the style of leadership that I had to assume for me to lead a team such as Toastmasters. At that moment, I realized I had to do a lot of learning to polish my leadership. Again, trust me, I'll go back to what I said initially. You could be a leader, but through a kiln of refinement, you identify yourself as this leader that is impactful, this leader that is visionary, this leader that can influence as well as inspire people. So yes, I could have been a leader, but I became that leader the moment I got through the kiln of refinement, and thanks to Toastmasters.
Wow, that is well answered. I thank you that you actually joined Toastmasters by accident. And now we have you, you're a past area director on all that. I joined Toastmasters in 2016. The very first segment that I took part in was table topics. Those of you that don't know what table topics is, this is a segment in our Toastmaster meeting that helps you speak impromptu. You do not know what question will be posed, but you are required to give your perspective on the question asked. When I was asked the question the very first time I joined Toastmasters, I was silent for some time. I did not know that in silence, time was moving. In Toastmasters, we do not only train you to be a professional speaker, we also train you to manage your time. I then took up the challenge and answered the question. I do not remember what the question was, but I took the first step and came out of my comfort zone. We have so many challenges that we go through on our day-to-day basis. Some of us face challenges in our homes, others face challenges in their workplaces, others face challenges in schools, and so on. Some of us even face challenges just being in a country that is not of your own. This evening, and because of such critical circumstances, it imposed this question that I'm about to ask. How do you manage your mindset in a difficult time? How do you manage your mindset in a difficult time? Toastmaster Billy.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Olivia. That's like my life. I feel like I was called to manage difficult moments. And over time, I've learned that I've developed a lot of resilience in my leadership style because of circumstances that I've faced in my personal life, as well as in my professional life. How do I manage to stay afloat in difficult moments? One thing that I do so well is that I make sure that I do not lose sight of my goal, because I've realized that when you are experiencing a difficult moment, many a times that we tend to focus on the problem itself, and that actually shatters down whatever vision you have going towards your main goal. So the first thing that I do is to make sure that I stay put and I do not lose sight of my goal. That has really helped me. And number two is for me to accept failure. Failure is a natural process that leads you to any success story that you can think of. Accepting that you will fail sometimes as a leader, as an individual, but what is important is to pick lessons from there and fail forward is something that I actually embrace. I love to quote Samuel Beckett all the times that have you ever failed? Have you ever tried? No matter, try again, fail better. So for me, in difficult moments, I don't shun away. I make sure that I focus on the goal. I keep trying, embrace failure and use it as a lesson or a learning point for me to move forward. So this is something that has really helped me. And the third one, which is the final one as well, just being agile, having an agile mindset, being highly adaptable, making sure that I am being agile every time and not just doing agility in difficult moments. So this is something that has helped me deal with difficult moments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do believe that all of us as leaders have failed before, and some of us have actually become stagnant after a failure. However, because this is an oasis of leadership, we are here to actually give you hope that despite the failure that you might have encountered, you can still step out of that zone and join Toastmasters. We are a supportive environment where we create a very supportive environment for all our members to thrive and to improve not only on their personal journeys, but also in their private lives. Those of you that joined Toastmasters or had the privilege of attending one of our meetings, we help you also with presentation skills. We help you prepare for important interviews like Toastmaster Mondia alluded. Because of what we are going through, I have noticed that most of these companies have, let me just say, they have this cream on the cake where when you check their websites, they'll tell you the good thing about the company. They'll tell you their aims, their mission, their vision, and all these beautiful things. But this evening, I have a privilege of being on this panel with CEOs. And because I have that privilege, I have one question for you, Toastmaster Kennedy. My question is, what are the challenges that you have faced in your life, in your work environment, and also in your leadership journey? What are the challenges you have faced in your life, in your work environment, and also in your leadership journey?
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Olivia. That's quite multifaceted a question, and I'll try to break it down as best I can. Firstly, the personal challenges I've faced in life are quite many, but I'll try to pick one which is quite dear to me, and that Toastmaster Billy also mentioned. Sometimes in your personal life, like many others, I have failed. Sometimes just failure at school might mean sometimes the end of the world to you, and you get exacerbated in the process. You get stressed. Sometimes you don't even know where to look to next. But the moment you start to overcome your own failures, you start to learn the art of leading self, because that is quite paramount every so often. When I look at some of the challenges I've faced in my role as CEO where I am, I want to first of all go back and talk about what leadership is all about. In every organization that one presides over, there are three things that they are bound to encounter in terms of management. Firstly, you have people whom you have to manage. Secondly, you have physical assets like motor vehicles, the buildings that you have to manage, the infrastructure. Thirdly, you might have your what we call liquid resources, bank accounts, and all these things. Now, out of the three, only one talks back, and that is people. So in my journey as a leader, I've learned that the most challenging aspect of any person who is at leadership is how to manage people conflict, people effects, what style to employ to manage what kind of people. So one of the things that we try to do in my organization was to start to identify the pillars. Remember, Olivia, before you start building a multi-story structure, you want to ensure that the concrete you apply in your pillars is strong enough to hold that building. So you start to identify people within the organization around whom you build your concrete. That becomes a good challenge as well as a leader, because it is not easy to look at here's Olivia, here's Billy, and suddenly to assume Billy is that concrete upon whom you raise your structure. The art of identifying character, the art of identifying your strong beacons within the people that you've been given to work with, that becomes the challenge sometimes. Therefore, as a leader and as a Toastmaster, you go through the art of being able to decipher who should be treated like what. It's not every person within an institution that has to be taken the same way. You have to learn to apply your agility to treat people and trade off where you think benefit will arise to your institution. That becomes also another level of challenge. But I think you get enthused when you realize you identify the right ones and make them the core or the inner circle, should I say, the storm's eye of your leadership within that entity, and try to build the whole organization around them, because they are the cornerstones, or should I say, they are the common pillars that are going to hold everything that you try to assemble in that entity. So I think for me, those are the challenges, but that is also how you go about overcoming them and ensure that you remain facing your true north. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. You have brought in a lot of questions. I do have a lot of questions, but you have brought in more questions. But then I will try and skip that. I didn't hear some of the questions you brought in and continue with our program, lest we go beyond time. Well, in Toastmasters, we have 4 values: respect, integrity, service, and excellence. Those are the values we live by. Those are the values that make us Toastmasters. And I have come to realize that in Toastmasters, there's a saying that because of service, it's a non-profit organization, and we volunteer every time we are called upon. Now, because it's a non-profit organization, there are times when they overload us with a lot of duties. And a common phrase that most of them will use in order for them to call you for a meeting role is "my leader." My leader, can you take up a meeting role? My leader, can you do this? And because you love it and because you're saving freely, you end up taking up those roles. And at the end of the day, you first burn out. My next question is, if you are in an organization and you are faced with the most challenging bosses, these are bosses that do not regard you. These are bosses that step on your principles as an individual and all your ethics and everything that you believe in. These are bosses that push you to the wall. Toastmaster Billy, how do you handle situations when you are faced with these difficult bosses? I do believe that you work in an organization where you have some of your members giving you the same challenges on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Olivia. That's a packed question that you've asked. Conflict is inevitable, just like Kennedy said. The people aspect, when you're dealing with one body, is the most difficult aspect of leadership, because systems and processes are usually very standardized, and you only come at the end of a year to review them. You can't review people. You actually have to lead people. And as you lead people, you realize that in an organization, you always have someone above you. Whether you're a CEO, you have to report into a board. Whether you're a board, you have to be called to go to parliament or report to some sort of a government organ. Whether you're a government, you report into some regional organizations. So at every level, there's always someone on top of you. And there are times when there will be such difficult situations where you are maybe reporting to 2 bosses or you are overloaded. One thing that I've learned is to embrace what is known as the courage, the circle of courage. It's a model that I use. So first, understanding yourself in terms of, the first one is mastery, the knowledge, skills, where are you in terms of continuous learning? And then the second quadrant is generosity. How generous are you to your team members, to your boss? How generous are you? Most people say yes to everything. Like you said, when you are called upon, my leader, can you do this? You say yes. Can you do this? You say yes. The other quadrant is independent or interdependent. how well do you collaborate with other people? And then the final one is belonging. What sense of belongingness do you have to this organization or to this team? But I would dwell more around generosity because this question speaks to that. Most of us have not learned how to say no. And the first thing that one of my coaches told me was that for you to know that you've matured as a leader is when you learn to say no. But how you say no is very important. Of course, I can't just say no to Kennedy as my CEO, hypothetically speaking. He gives me a task and I just say no. There is a better way of doing it, and it's called communication. Most of us do not communicate, and I always encourage people to have what are known as information radiators. If Kennedy, as my CEO, can see what is on my plate and what I'm working on, if I can open up to tell him to say, thank you so much, I'm happy to take up this task. However, there's this other task that I'm working on, and it actually speaks into a goal that we're supposed to meet because we are launching a product that's supposed to go to the market and the return on investment is high on this one, or it's our cash cow. So Kennedy would then understand better the circumstances under which I am working. And I expect him to either notice a gap, whether we need to employ one more person, or maybe he can delay that, or it can be given to another person. So most of the times we fail to stand up, be courageous, and voice out to say, I'm reaching burnout. I have too much on my plate. It is beyond my capacity in this moment. Are you okay if I delayed the delivery of this milestone maybe to 2 weeks' time? And of course, because of that candid conversation, you will then begin to deal with the root cause of the problem rather than mending or patching up the symptoms. Because most of the times we do symptomatic arrangements. You work up to 0, 3 and deliver a report. Kennedy will never know that he has a problem, a capacity problem, because you delivered. And so you are the one who's going to get burned out, and eventually you get frustrated, you hate your job, and maybe you even resign without Kennedy even knowing what the problem was. But if we begin to open up, communication is not just downward, but also upward. Be candid in the way that you communicate, be more objective, and address the actual issues for you to get the help. This is the way that I manage difficult circumstances to avoid burnout. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Billy, for that insight. I really appreciate your feedback, and I hope this is helping one or two that are tuned in this evening. We have been in Toastmasters for quite some time now. I do believe that we have been consistent, we have maintained loyalty, and we have maintained commitment. My question is, what happens to that time when you feel you lack commitment? How do you remind yourself what is your why in those times? For this question, I would like both of you to actually take turns and remind us or take us through what your why is, especially when you lack commitment. What is your why? Toastmaster Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Olivia. I'll try to be very, not really opaque or ambiguous, but I'll try to bring in a bit of a story as well to answer that question. Imagine today, Olivia, you are looking towards Christmas, and 25th December is just a few days away. And you know that on that particular day, you have a party that you've got to attend. And one of the requirements for you to attend a party is to look glamorous. And therefore, you get on a mission to find that beautiful dress. You know where the dress is found. You've got to go to maybe East Park Mall to find that dress in a particular shop. The motivation that carries you on to go to East Park and look for that particular shop and that particular dress that will make you look good is enough for you to consistently keep on track, ensuring that you get to East Park on time and before 25th of December. What am I trying to say here? When you join something, you've got to be purposeful. If from the get-go, you know my purpose is to get that dress, there's nothing along the way between where you are to East Park that will deter your journey, because you are prefixed on the goal. That is what builds your consistent commitment, and that is what keeps you on track. When I joined Toastmasters, and I think I've had these conversations with Billy as well as maybe a few others, I've said, you've got to look for something. If it is not there in Toastmasters, please don't stay there. Go elsewhere where you find it. What I was looking for, the refinement in leadership, and I'll tell you, I've done dynamic leadership, I've done effective coaching, and I've done also motivational, because this is what I was looking for. And I know it is found at East Park, and my East Park is Toastmasters. I continue going there. So nothing should come in my way, because trust me, if it is a distractor, I've got to throw it out. There comes a time, however, when I might be too busy. For me, when you are busy, it's just some orbital dictators that just slow you down along your way. But eventually, if you are prefixed on your goal, the matters relating to commitment should not come or arise at all in your vocabulary. And I've always said with this with many people, I keep on saying, don't belong to anything that failed, and don't be the failure that went there to make everybody else do so. So once you commit, keep on track and ensure you get what you want. I think that for me, that's the long and short of it, Olivia. Thank you.
Kennedy, you're answering so well this evening. I don't know if you saw my questions, or I don't know if it's the table topic skill that you've developed over the years. I really don't know. Billy, would you mind taking us what is your why, and why what you do when you lack commitment?
First of all, I like what Kennedy said. Don't be part of anything that fails, and don't be that failure that takes it to other people.
I took note of the quotes too. That's really insightful.
I also took note of that. I think that's such a profound quote that Kennedy has just said. In everything, I think it's about the compass. It's knowing where you want to be and being intentional about it. And true to what Kennedy said, I had a lot of conversations with him when he was area director, and I remember I was president just 3 months into my Toastmasters journey, and I had a lot of conversations with him. And what stood out, what was consistent up to now, was that this is your personal journey, and you make it work because you're the one who knows what you want to get out of Toastmasters. And from then, I decided to be more intentional, and I'm always in touch with my why. I know why I joined Toastmasters, because it offers this experiential environment where I'm able to exercise my different leadership skills. As you all know, that there's no one single leadership. It's situational leadership. Situations differ, and the way you handle them differ depending on the requisites, that the leadership requisites that you've harnessed along the way. So what's most important for me is not really the destination, but the direction. And Toastmasters gives me that direction. And so it helps me wake up every morning the same way that we look forward to every day, despite the challenges that we encounter in life. Is because we are hopeful that things will get better the following day. That's the whole point as well. I know what my purpose is, and Toastmasters is like an assignment. So I also like to give this example. When you know what your purpose is, it's like a saxophone, a golden saxophone. When you put it on the table, it's beautiful, it's glamorous, you admire it, right? But then it's just a saxophone on the table. It will need somebody to blow into it. So now when you blow into a saxophone, you become an assignment, and it produces a sound that soothes, people's souls, and they get to enjoy. That's the way I look at life as well. And Toastmasters is an assignment for me. And so every time I wake up, I tell myself, for me to be purposeful, for me to achieve that which I was brought on earth for me to achieve my leadership skills, to harness my leadership skills, I need Toastmasters, because it's an assignment that helps me to lead a group of people coming from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, and overall, it now helps me to tap into what my purpose is. So my why is very, very renounding and it's very strong. So that's what keeps me going. Even when moments come and I feel like giving up, I tap into my purpose and it leads me to my why. And then I keep running, just like Kennedy said. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Billy. What strategy helps you perform your best? What are those strategies that you use? Maybe sometimes to encourage yourself, to motivate yourself. What strategies help you perform your best on a day-to-day basis? Kennedy.
I was almost going to say those are my secrets and I didn't want to share because then everybody else will do what I do and maybe better it. But I will try to speak to a few things that I think I do every time. I give myself a moment to evaluate my day. I've always been a believer of accountable time. Okay, so I try to ensure that every time I have a space, 30 minutes or so, every other day, I've got to sit down and say, how do I account for my time? Is there something that I did today that added value? Is there something that I could have done differently? That's the first thing that I try to do, self-introspection and evaluation. Secondly, I also try to ask myself, what new thing did I do today? Now, that's a different aspect. Remember, I evaluate my day, but I ask myself if I did any new thing. It doesn't matter. It could be a word I used to inspire people. It could be some new issue that I came up with. It could be a resolution to a problem. It could be the way I encourage my employees. But that is quite important. If you don't do anything new today, you are adapting to the norm. And I hate normal people. I want people that are disruptive every day because I believe I am as well. Thirdly, I try to also encourage people around the goal. Remember, when you're in leadership and you want to take your institution to the next level, you've got to be very clear where you are taking them. Don't forget, a leader knows the way, walks the way, and shows the way. Now, if you haven't walked the way and you don't even know where you're going for that matter, it doesn't matter how many you hold hands and you tag them with you, you're basically just leading them astray. So we've got to have a team built around non-objectives. And these goals or objectives or missions or visions, you've got to enshrine them in the hearts and minds of those you are working with. Otherwise, that is recipe for failure. People have to be reminded constantly. So I said I'll be mean. I didn't want to share that many because suddenly you become a better leader than I am. But I think those three are very critical. Self-evaluation. Secondly, doing a new thing. Thirdly, let the people know where you are taking them to. It's very important.
I think I love the third one. Let the people know where you're taking them to. I would want to be political about this one, but at least I get sued tomorrow. So I will not get into that. Billy, I'm very curious to find out. My next question to you is, what was your first job and how was it like? And how can you differentiate your first job to where you are now? What makes it fun?
Very interesting. Now, Olivia, you're digging into our past, which we've buried and they've never been seen on social media. And I don't know if I want to talk about it, but because you've asked, I'll comply. My first job was IT technician. I worked for a company called Siemens, a telecoms company. And so many things are different from what I was doing then and what I'm doing now, because it was a hands-on job. I drilled walls and walls. I pulled cables. I used the pick much more than I used my brain because we had to lay cables. We were doing a lot of cabling, structured cabling. And I think I was much pumped up then because I was doing a lot of manual work during my first job. But I learned a lot of things. I built my principles when I worked for that organization. I remember the CEO of that organization. At one point, we went to this farm, Pongwe farm, and it was a time for us to get in the ceiling. And the way I joined this organization was that I was apparently a best student where I was when I did my first qualification. And so I was just picked and joined. And so, you know, the pride of being the best student, and you expect to be in an office operating on a laptop, but it was totally different. The real world was totally different. So we went to Mpongwe, and then we're told there's a problem in the ceiling and we need to fix the cable. I was like, no ways. I'm a distinction student. This is not what I came to do. So I sat and I stayed there for 10 minutes. Guess what my CEO did? He pulled a ladder and went in the ceiling. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm losing my job. So the best thing to do is to follow the leader. I went in the ceiling with him as well. And whilst we were in the ceiling, then he told me something to say, look, Billy, if you want to be a strong person in your career, you've got to understand the fundamentals. Do not choose the work, and you will never be in this position forever. This is something that you need to understand. When you become CEO, you will be leading people who will be using peaks and all these things. And if you haven't been through, you will never understand what they're going through. You will never innovate on their behalf. And true to his words, when I grew up through the ladder, my career ladder to where I am today, leading a lot of people, over 14 people, and in many other areas, I've then transformed into a strategic person. So right now, I speak strategy. You know, right now I speak strategic projects. Right now I speak value. What value are we giving to our customers? But not to forget that in the organization, there's still that guy with a peak like me when I started my career. So I'm in touch with the entire hierarchy of the organization, and I am then able to connect with them and be able to help them to do their best where they are, and remind them also to say, this is only a phase. You're only learning the fundamentals. And one day when you grow up the ladder, you also remember the other person who will be there down with the peak. So this is a difference that I've experienced. In my earlier days, it was more manual, but these days there's more strategy employed, more thought process, more innovation, and aggressive competition, because we are in business and we need to survive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Billy. I'm glad I went into your past. We've gotten to know you better, and we understand now why you are the leader that you are today. You know, when I was a child, I was a very curious child. I loved mind games. I loved to play with puzzles. I loved to figure things out and everything like that. I had a strategy, like Toastmaster Billy alluded. My strategy was I needed to be bought every morning. Either you buy me through giving me tax shop money or a piece of chocolate. If my mom didn't give me chocolate or tax shop money, I don't want to bath to go for school. So because of that tactic, we played around it. I got my way through it, and it was exciting and very fun. However, this has brought me to this question that I'm about to pose on you this evening. What gets you up every morning? What is that one thing that gets you up every morning? And I would love both of you to take turns in not more than 2 minutes, please. I just want a brief answer on what gets you up every morning and why you do so. Toastmaster Kennedy.
Thank you so much. I would not want to be very spiritual, but I'll start from a point of spirituality. When God created the world, we've been taught in the Bible that on the seventh day, he rested. And what is not so unclear in the Bible is that after the seventh day of resting, he never went back to work because he had finished. What keeps me waking up every morning? Very simple and in no certain terms is unfinished business. I have that mind that doesn't rest because I know there's something unfinished. Sometimes I'm laughed at even by my wife here when I wake up and say, you know what, I dreamt about work. I do dream work because I know when it's unfinished, to be finished. But the way work is there's always something unfinished every day. So because of that very nature, I think you almost as you're waking up every other day anyway. So what am I trying to say in a nutshell? The desire to succeed at a role, an action, or an event is enough impetus to knock on your mind and wake you up every other day. Because the way a mind is structured, it wants accomplishments. So for me, without accomplishment, my mind is yearning for that particular unaccomplished business or stuff to bring it to its conclusion. So I wake up every day because I know there's something somewhere, somehow, which is lacking, yearning for my time to have it completed. Thank you.
Wow, unfinished business. I love that. I love that. Well, like you said, I think I'll start working up every day because of unfinished business. Thank you so much, CEO Kennedy. That feels nice to call you CEO. It feels really amazing. Billy, what wakes you up every morning?
Interesting that I have a different approach to almost what is similar to Kennedy. So it's two things for me. Number one, it's my family. All of a sudden now I am scared every day to say, how have I secured the future of these little kids? You know, I have to make sure that they are safe. If I'm not there anymore tomorrow, how is my family going to survive? That keeps me on my toes and it keeps me going every day. That's the first thing. The second thing is a feeling that so many people have gone to the grave with unheard music. We never known what melody they were going to play. I'm sorry, I was muting some people. I'm also playing Zoom Master. We would have never danced to the music because they never played the music to the world. And so just like Toastmaster Kennedy, it's moving goals. Life in itself is a goal. And every day that you wake up is filled with moving goals. Today you're chasing this, you want to do your master's degree. After you are done with it, and then what? Because you've achieved it and it's done. So you want a PhD. After a PhD, then what? And so you realize that life is just steps that never end. It's like a bottomless pit. And you know, you hanging in there wanting that thing, I guess that thing is death, but we fool ourselves to say we will meet it one day. And when we meet it, because we will not be there when we die, then we will not even realize why we were on earth. So it's just chasing these daily goals, like the unfinished business that Kennedy has. You're waking up to say, I can be a better leader. We can lead this nation in a better way. We can change things. But guess what? Even if we die, you know, just planting the trees without enjoying the shade, we will know that other people were watching and they will continue to fertilize those trees. And someday future generations will benefit from that shade. That's what keeps me awake every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because of COVID, I have come to realize and appreciate each and every person that I have in my life. We have lost a lot of people because of COVID. And that obviously other diseases as well. And this for me makes me live every day like it's my last. I live in every moment. I enjoy every moment and I do what I know best. And thereafter, I can say, yeah, I live quite a fun, interesting, adventurous life because every day I am trying out new things. Thank you for being the rivers that have kept us flowing despite the challenges that we are facing. I know you keep impacting us, you keep inspiring us, and you inspire a lot of people. We admire you and how well you present us. That was just a moment of silence. Sorry. There are so many young people like myself that would want to become a CEO one day. A lot of young people, we want to become CEO, CFO, and all that. What are some of the things that you would advise that we shouldn't do as we climb the ladder of success? What are some of the things you would advise us who want to become CEO one day, Kennedy? Billy, who want to become like you one day? What are some of the things that you would advise us that we should not do as we climb the ladder of success? Kennedy.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Firstly, sometimes people think being CEO is the epitome of joy. But let me dispel that by saying, if you really want to be there, enjoy everything you want to do, and be a free spirit, perhaps the last thing you have to think about is being CEO, because that comes with enormous responsibility. Now, when it comes to your question regarding what you shouldn't do, number one, you shouldn't take it for granted that is a given. I want to also mention that, remember, there's no school in the world that goes to train CEOs. There's no career. It's not like you're going to be trained to be an accountant or an engineer. So there's no school that trains CEOs. You've got to have come with a particular discipline without having taken anything for granted. Then number two, you've got to learn that for you to lead, you've got to be able to speak. Communication becomes a very good ingredient that has to harness your ability to be a leader. So the reverse of it is true. What you shouldn't do is to shy away from moments of speaking. Take the leadership every time there's a chance to speak and communicate. Thirdly, learn to be a leader of your own self. So the inverse of that would be that don't be careless. The moment you expose yourself to carelessness, remember, in fact, at the moment with the world of social media, the world is watching you every so often. So whatever it is you want to do it with an integral mind, because carelessness might cost you your chances. Fourth, test your commitment at what it is you want to aim for in life. If you are not committed, then you are not ready. You can't commit to something without having been committed to your own path, your own pathway. So it's an issue of you trying to all the time staying the course. That is quite paramount for every young leader aspiring to be CEO. So like I said, the inverse of what I've said you should do is basically what you should not do. It's got to be deliberate. If you want to be a pilot, you've got to behave like one. You've got to look at what pilots do. Equally, if you want to be a leader, you've got to speak like one, walk like one, and dress like one. Thank you.
Wow, speak like one, walk like one, and dress like one. And I must say that you are actually dressed like leaders this evening. Kudos to whoever helped you dress up. Thank you so much, my leaders. I will, before we can open this to question and answer segment, let me just ask one more question. Like a rising tide rises all boats and ships. What has been that anchor that you have used in your journey and that has helped you hold on? What has been that anchor that you have used in your journey and that has helped you hold on? Billy.
My anchor has been being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's my anchor.
And Billy, I'm sorry, you did not answer the previous question. What advice would you give that we shouldn't do while we climb the ladder of success? I see that you were about to skip it.
No, because CEO did everything. But I'll be quick. For me, it's not putting people on pedestals and not looking down on people, because people come with different values. And do not build values based on people that inspire you, because you end up being a mimic of them and you end up being a counterfeit. So know thyself. That's very important. Number two, do not be a know-it-all. This life is dynamic. You will be shocked at how much you're going to learn from a security guard who has different sets of values. You want to continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn. As we are saying, we are living in a dynamic world. Thirdly, stay in touch with people. Do not innovate on your own as a leader, and you put things in your head to say, this is what the world needs, or this is what my people need. No matter how good your intentions are, if you don't create that feedback loop, you will always be astray at what the people, your customers, your family members, your lover, whatever it is in a relationship is actually looking for. And you'll miss an opportunity to add value in other people's lives. So listen more, listen with an open heart rather than listening from old habits or downloading stereotypically. So those are the few things that I think I would advise on my not to do list. Thank you.
Listen with an open heart. What if you've had an argument? It's okay. I get it. I was choose trying. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions, Zoom Master, in the chat box? Kindly assist me. If we have any questions, any contributions, people still tuned in, or maybe we are just the three of us.
There's 26 people on the call, and I haven't seen any questions. So maybe if they can type in or raise their hands, and then I will help in pointing out who has raised their hand up.
Okay, could you kindly type in your questions in the chat box or in the comment section? Billy, I noticed that our Facebook live is just showing a link. So should people just click on the link and join in?
Yes, they will be able to watch once they click on the link.
Okay, so if you are joining us on Facebook, just click the link and it will bring you to our meeting this evening.
There is a question, rather a comment. It came direct to me and not in the main chat. It's from Joe Lungu. Most impactful Zoom have attended in a while. Nice work, locked and enjoying. It's more of a compliment. Thank you, Joe Lungu.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. We are glad that you are listening. We thought we are just the three of us because, you know, as leaders in Toastmasters, we develop a verbal diarrhea where we just keep talking and forget that we have an audience that we have to talk to as well. So do we have any other questions? Kindly type in your questions so that we can tackle some of them very quickly before we close the panel discussion. Are we having any feedback, Billy?
I'm still checking. I'm vigilant over here. I can't see any virtual hands up. Maybe if you don't know where to find it, yes. Zulu Mwenya, kindly unmute yourself.
We have
All
a
right.
question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think for me, it is an aspect of maybe to one of my leaders, how you draw your aspirations from to keep up with the Toastmasters journey. Even sometimes maybe you get to experience challenges from your own members that you're leading. You're trying to push them in this direction, perhaps to do their pathways, and they're not doing it. And you sometimes get deflated by that. You have that energy you want to apply yourself. So you learn your leadership abilities as well. Then also push the agenda of the club ahead. But the people you're leading, they don't seem to be responsive. How have you managed to push up with that spirit so that they get the excitement that you also have for the Toastmasters journey that you have? Thank you.
I would like Toastmaster Billy to answer this one. Kindly answer. Manage. Keep your energy. No, I have another question for Toastmaster Kennedy. How have you managed to keep your energies?
Thank you so much, Zulu Mwenya. That question, being a leader sometimes is very lonely, especially when your team is not connected to the vision. Like Toastmaster Kennedy mentioned, to say if you hold hands and sing Kumbaya and you don't know where you're going, it will be a futile journey. So what has helped me at my personal level is that I am very intentional with my Toastmasters journey. I know exactly what I want to get out of Toastmasters. That's why I'm the first person to raise my hand, to take up a role, or to be part of any initiative, because I benefit a lot from doing things and getting the evaluation. In helping people, unfortunately in Toastmasters, you can't dictate or force people to do things, right? You inspire them to do things. So that's another challenge that you will have as a leader in Toastmasters, because you need to inspire people to achieve their own goals. But most importantly, the quality of members that you get at the onboarding time matters a lot. Disclose everything to them. Like Kennedy said, if this is not something that will align with what you're looking for, go and look for it elsewhere. Most of the times people join Toastmasters because they've seen Olivia speaking eloquently, they've seen Kennedy rise up to CEO, they've seen Billy doing a lot of things, so they just jump in without a clear picture of what they want out of Toastmasters. And so when they don't get it, they don't realize that you have to work for you to get anything out of Toastmasters if you want Toastmasters to work for you. So if they fail to receive things on a silver platter, then they get frustrated, they're disengaged. So what you want to do, Zulu Mwenya, is to make sure that hold your members accountable right from the onset, to say, this is your personal journey. You know what you want to get out of this. What we will do as your leaders is to guide you and support you. So because of time, I think that those are the nuggets that I would like to share, but we can pick it up offline and I will share more nuggets with you. Thank you. And Olivia,
while you were speaking,
there's 3 questions in the chat. So
Billy, can you get me? Billy,
yes,
can you get me?
Yes, I can.
So while you were speaking, I picked one question, then you will read the other ones while we go. So let me answer the first one. The first one is from Bernadette saying, my question is, how does dress code really help one define the path to great leadership? I will pick this one because it seems a bit easy for me, while I give a chance to my panelists to prepare for the hard ones that are coming. Well, when we talk about dress code, remember, every opportunity is a time for you to shine. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know how you are branding yourself as well. So you want to dress professionally all the time. If not professionally, at least smart casual, because this helps you prepare as a professional leader, and not only a professional leader, it also helps you in times of networking. You represent the brand that you are. So how you dress really matters as a leader, because if you, for example, you came to Toastmasters and we had a networking function, there are times when we have Toastmasters like Toastmaster Kennedy, who is a CEO, and a lot of other personalities. Imagine you came in a bum short and a crop top. Do you think professional leaders would want to talk to you? Already they'll have another perspective of who you are. So how you dress helps with how you're branding yourself. And because you're being trained to be a professional speaker, you are to dress responsibly and decently, be it casual or smartly formally dressed. Billy, kindly read through the next questions and see who among you guys can answer it.
Okay, I will read this for Kennedy. Interesting conversation. This is from Precious Kalunga. When it comes to being a leader, when do you know when to speak? Because Mr. Kennedy said you need to communicate and speak. And when do you stay quiet and just listen?
That's a very interesting question, especially for a Toastmaster. Firstly, as a leader, remember, you are not leading inanimate objects. You are going to be leading people. And with people, they have emotions, they have character, they have personality, and they have all these traits that they come with. Now, when do you speak? With a smile, I would say, when the right time comes for you to speak. But what time is that? A good leader is one with whom people believe they're not even there and the people believe they're doing it themselves. So meaning a leader is mostly going to be silent. Remember, when you define direction and there's buy-in from your people, there is very little for you to do apart from just giving assurances. Along the journey, there's going to be turbulences and people would want to call for the leader to take center stage. Then now you speak. You cannot be showing an electrician, for example, how to repair when they've already been trained. You would believe that they would do it with less mistakes. So your job is to just certify to say, okay, job well done. A leader speaks last more often. A leader does a lot of speaking and introspection, then adds value as the last voice to every conversation. That gives assurances. That's the right time for you to open your mouth.
Okay, so the next one, Olivia, the people are asking, Arnold, very exciting interaction. How do I join Toastmasters? So maybe you will speak into that. And maybe let me just load it with the next one. Thank you so much. This is from Francis. This is my first meeting and I'm super interested to be part of it. How best can I manage my time in line with work and family? So maybe I can quickly tackle the time management, and then you can tackle how to join, Olivia. The time management, this question came from Francis. As you know, the way we behave as human beings is like investment, right? You always invest where your heart is. That's just the way it is. When you look at time, we all have the same time, 24 hours in a day. And I always tell people this thing when we say, I don't have time, I can't do Toastmasters. Look at the time, especially between 17 and midnight. How do you spend that time? Accounting for time is one important thing that I do. And putting practices in place helps you build the character or behaviors that then shape you going forward and things become more natural and distinctive. So what I've done personally is that I would say that Saturday is family time. We have to have an activity. Friday we'll have this activity. Every evening I have to tell my baby's bedtime story, otherwise they'll not go to sleep. So these are little pockets of time, you know, one of the guys say that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your goals, of your processes. What processes have you put in place? So accounting for that time, we have a lot of time. After 17, that's time in between, the buffer, how do you manage it? So you realize that you always have some pockets of time when you're maybe just watching TV or just lazing around. So how can you create value out of those pockets? So that's the way I've managed my time with family. It's around setting systems in place. So whether you feel like doing it or not, you will do it because you've actually set that principle or activity for yourself. Maybe Olivia, you want to answer the question around how people can join Toastmasters. How can they follow Toastmasters?
Thank you, Billy. I have just written my email address in the chat box. However, if you'd like to speak to us, we are on the page Toastmaster International Zambia. Kindly follow that page and message us your details, all your contact details and your email, and best believe we will call you. So if you found this very valuable and you'd love to join, you can either email me on my email address, mwamba.olivia@gmail.com, or text us on International Toastmasters Zambia page. We will give you feedback that you need and we can get on a one-on-one call with you. Thank you, Billy.
Okay, so can I read the next one for
yes,
Kennedy?
Yes, and let's try to wind up. We are going beyond time.
All right, so I'll combine all of them. Maybe Kennedy, so it's 2 in 1 from Mumbi. How do you maintain agency as an African in the global corporate space? Number 2, how do you get people to be open to your ideas, your team, boards, clients? That's the question for you. Let me just quickly go to the other one because we're running out of time. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to engage. Toastmasters is an organization that develops soft skills, and there is also an emphasis on achieving certain targets for the club, area, and division. how do you ensure members are not left behind chasing targets? Okay, I can tackle this one. Then finally, I will throw this to Kennedy as well to make it 3. How can you create an environment around you where you get to make people have positive energy or that drive to be the change without being too pushy or cold overzealous? I think we start with Kennedy, then I can tackle the one about targets and members. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll start with the last question relating to how do you maintain a positive environment in terms of energy. Let me mention, I think yesterday I had a chat with a colleague, and this colleague was wondering why I just look like I'm so full of life. And I said, of course, I wouldn't be so sure if that's how I looked. When I see my face in the mirror, I just see this guy who is getting ready for a job. Okay. Now, how do you maintain an environment of positivity? First, you've got to be positive yourself. Sometimes it does occur that you are fallen, but because you know you are in this role as a leader, you've got to show positivity all the time. You're the last person to lose hope. You're the person who should believe first before anybody else does. So when you're a bound of positive energy, it has a rub-off effect on those people who are around you. So yes, you've got to be positive yourself and believe there's a positive element that is contained in each and every one of those you are leading. That way, positive energy shall actually engulf the whole group. So you've got to be positive and believe everyone else has positivity and they can contribute to the larger stake. I'm just being quick to answer that, but I think it's a question that we can always try to expand on. Secondly, the issue of how we manage to keep people glued to the goal. I think as a leader, one of the things that actually we do every day is to inspire. Remember earlier on, I said, let people know where you are taking them to. But then you've got to inspire them to that goal. You've got to motivate them and making them believe that yes, we can get there. And then walk with them. Sometimes we lose it when we believe that as long as I've shown them where we are headed to, they can find their way. People need you would understand what I'm talking about. So you inspire, motivate them to the goal, but more importantly, walk with them along the way. Hold hands. Coming to the first question relating to agents as an African in the corporate world. It's a very interesting question, but of course, you've got to look at the world or the globe differently. The business world knows no race. The business world is not a respecter of continental boundaries. The business world respects business ethics. So as an African, there's no chance to look at yourself as such. Remember, there are other Africans who are doing their applying their trade in other continents and running at the pace of business. We cannot be excluded. We've got to run as businessmen without race discrimination. The moment we start looking at continental boundaries, we'll be believing Africans do things the African way. Business has no African way. Business has only one way, the business way. So for corporate enterprise, you've got to maximize industry within the sphere of the business elements that you've learned and let it not be anything to do with, I am an African. We've got to participate to the bigger table, be the big boys also, let other races copy from the way we do business. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. I want to chill with the big boys. Answering the last question before I hand over to the host, asked by Pamelo. I hope I pronounced your name properly, Selo. I would like to remind the leaders on this call leading clubs that the division, the district, and the clubs do not push you for goals. They push you to become a quality member. Come to think of it, when you say a club is a distinguished club, president distinguished, what does it really mean? You see that there are goals that accumulate, and a larger chunk of it come from educational goals. So the more educational goals you have is an indication of people in a club speaking. So I would like you to change the way you look at this. As they say, perception is everything. When you look at these goals as goals being achieved on behalf of the division of the district, then you miss the point. These goals should be rather a reflection of people speaking. The more you speak in a club, the more it reflects on the dashboard. So when a dashboard, even in organizations, you have KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. And if key performance indicators are going low, it's an indication that we are having a club that is lacking behind in terms of quality, because then it shows the temperature that people are not speaking. And why are you paying $45 if you're not speaking? I love to use this metaphor that you've got to make your $45 sweat, and you only make it sweat by speaking, because that's the way you grow in Toastmasters. And the numbers are now a byproduct of what you're doing. So rather flip it. Tell your members that when you speak, then the accolades will come, and they will mean that this club is a quality club, because it's a reflection of how engaged members are and how much of a quality club it is. So you want to look at it from that angle as a leader, not as a goal that is given to you by a division or a district. Back to you, Madam Host. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Billy. 30 seconds of silence. After a very impactful discussion like we've had, to both of you that are still on the call with me, my panelists, I just have one more question before we close it up. How are you? How are you today? Toastmaster Kennedy, how are you today?
Well, I could have been better. This is a Friday, but I'm happy to have committed my time to a good cause. So with that, I think I'm very fine. I'm very fine. I'm actually grateful to have been a part of this discussion, and I hope a few people. Thank you.
Billy, how are you today?
Wow, that sounds therapeutic. You should have asked it at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you so much. It shows a lot of care. I am very fine, and I feel fulfilled to have spent time on this roundtable. I think it's been very fulfilling that we've been able to interact with people out there. Just never know how many lives we touch. If we touched one life, I think that's the most important thing. Then it wasn't meant for hundreds of people who wanted to log on. That one life matters, and I feel very fulfilled. Thanks.
I believe Billy one day will become a pastor. He was almost going into all that sermon and everything. But anyway, we'll spare him that. My fellow panelists and I, being your host, I would like you, in a space of 1 minute or less, kindly give us your closing remarks. Can we start with Kennedy? What would be your closing remarks to the listeners, to ourselves, and your takeaways?
Thank you so much. I'll spend my 1 minute talking about leadership, because from the get-go, I think that was your focus, Olivia. And I want to mention that leadership doesn't just happen overnight. It is a journey. Most of us could have been prefects and captains at school. We did it without intention, and really thought probably that's the way it would have been done. But as you grow, you start to realize there's leadership everywhere, and you've got to crave for it for you to be a defined leader. It doesn't happen without you having to show an interest. So if you want to be a leader any other day, please pick your slacks and start leading from self. And of course, you will see where your direction is. But also, principle number 2 of leadership is you cannot make a leader if you have not been led before. So you should have followed somebody for you to aspire to be a leader. This should be my last remarks. So thank you so much, Olivia, for hosting us. And of course, thank you so much, the viewers and the participants. But of course, the journey of leadership starts with self-discovery. Assume the role of leadership. Remember, it is lonely sometimes at the top. Thank you.
Thank you so much for reminding us that it is lonely sometimes at the top. Billy, kindly give us your closing remarks.
It is very lonely sometimes at the top. That is true. For me, my closing remarks, thank you so much for everybody who tuned in, followed us on on Facebook. And thank you, Kennedy, and to yourself, host, and the members who joined this Zoom meeting. My last remarks will be that if you want to be a good leader, like Kennedy said, it starts from you being a good follower, because leadership is not a position, it's a disposition. What is it that you're able to do as a follower? If you're not able to do it as a follower, you will never do it, even if you became a board chairman. And finally, the three things is stay curious. There's so many things to learn out there. Have an open ear, have an open eye to new things. Secondly, build trust and not territories, because when you build territories, you will not then get that feedback loop that is very important for personal growth. And the final one is that as a leader, be courageous enough to challenge the status quo, because that's the only way you innovate and get to break out of your cocoons or your comfort zones, because a comfort zone is a very good place, but nothing grows there. Back to you, host. Thanks.
In the midst of drought, there is hope. And this evening, we took you through the oasis of leadership. I would love to thank you all for joining in. Thank you so much for impacting us with your wisdom. I look forward to sharing more of these platforms with you, my leader, my leaders. And to everyone who would like to join more of our platforms, make sure you follow our page. We will post a lot of these engagements once in a while, where we call in fellow Toastmasters and we have conversations with them on leadership and aspects that affect us on our day-to-day basis. I have had so much fun and I have had so much to take away from this conversation. I have been your host this evening. My name is Olivia I. Mwamba. Feel free to follow me on Facebook and ask me more questions in case we haven't satisfied your curiosity mind this evening. Thank you everyone that joined in, and thank you to my panelists. At least the two of you showed up. I was almost getting worried that I might be the Zoom master and the only person on the panel, because most people are scared, more so because you all did not know the questions I prepared for you this evening. Thank you so much for taking your time from your busy schedules, and I hope to see you again. I hope to meet you, Kennedy. I hope you're now out of the hiding cocoon. We want to see you. We want to feel your energy. We want to hear more from you, and we still want to get that wisdom from you and help us on our journey as we become the leaders like you are. Thank you guys, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys. Thank you, listeners.
So Billy, I would ask you to log off the live chat